Hey everybody, welcome to another drive-through rundown. Today we're going to talk about the Nemesis expansion for Relic. This is the first expansion. Among a couple of scenarios that it also adds these Nemesis characters here. And these are characters that you can take and play and basically have PvP, or player versus combat, with the Imperium players. Now I've got the Relic box here just for box comparison size. This is a decent sized box, but again, not as big as the normal kind of Ticket to Ride size box. So let's go ahead and open these up. I'll spread all the components out and kind of walk you through how some of the new rules and different things work. Okay, here's all the contents you get in the game box, including these cards I've set aside here on the main game board that comes with the base game. So let's go ahead and zoom in on all the different things here, and I'll kind of tell you what's what. So the first thing to notice here is we have a couple of different busts or models here. And these red ones here, these are for the Nemesis players there. So these you'll get, and you're going to put on the different little stands there. And so I'll just kind of show you just a nice, relatively good close-up of the different models there. Pretty well detailed. As we've come to kind of expect. I really liked how the models looked in the base game, and they look just as good here, I think. Very they're caricatures. They're full of life, and they have nice, good qualities to them, and very distinctive looking. So those are the different models here, and so these gray ones obviously are for the normal Imperium players. And we get two new Imperium players here. We get two more boards and then two more character sheets here. Haven't honestly taken a very close look at these. I've been more interested in some of the other stuff in the expansion, so let's take a look at that. Now, I think the main focus of this expansion that players are going to be interested in are these Nemesis characters here. You can see here they have their own kind of dial system here. So let's zoom in a little bit closer. So the way that the Nemesis player is going to win the game is a completely different way than whatever the scenario is and what the Imperium players are going to be doing. Here you have the infamy dial here. It starts at 0 and it goes all the way up here to 25. As soon as a Nemesis player hits 25, they're going to win the game. On this side you've got their life tracker here, but they only have one other dial, and that's actually sort of modular and able to be swapped out. So if we look at this particular character here, you can see it's got a yellow skull. Some of these other ones under here, that one's got a blue skull and things like that. So you take one of these dials here. If we take a look up there, you can see there's multiple modular dials, and they have this sort of washer and nut kind of thing here. So you go ahead and actually just slot that into here, and then let me just do that real quick. And you can see that once you move that in there, then you can kind of move it like normal there. So that's kind of an interesting idea, so that when you actually do battle with a Nemesis character, then you're actually only going to be using that one attribute there. And so obviously these guys have different abilities and things that they're going to do, and ways to kind of trigger infamy to be generated for themselves. There's a whole mess of different abilities. I'll let you go ahead and read up on those. But each of the different characters you can see here comes with its own Nemesis deck, and these are going to be a variety of different things here. These are going to get triggered now when you move onto spaces on the board that do not have threat icons. So there's a whole bunch of these different things here. Sometimes they're weapons and different stuff like that. Sometimes they're just little events that are going to happen. But if your Nemesis player ever lands on a spot that doesn't have a threat icon, and remember these are the threat icons here that the Imperium player will have to deal with. But if they land on a spot that's not a threat icon, then they have to resolve a card from their Nemesis deck. And usually that's going to be an instant thing where they kind of resolve it and then discard it. Sometimes you'll keep the card and then resolve it later. Or even if it could be in a piece of equipment or something that you're going to keep. Now, if you ever land on a spot that has a threat icon, the Nemesis players all have this Nemesis deck here. And when you flip these over, these actually are going to be horizontal in nature, which is different than, let's look at a yellow one here. This is a threat that the Imperium player is going to have to deal with. So these Imperium deck threats, which are going to be antagonistic towards the Nemesis player, are going to fill up, as well as the normal threats in the normal game. And the limit on each of those is the number of icons. Again, there's not really a color, for example, for this Nemesis deck. So if there was already a yellow threat here for an Imperium player to deal with, and then I landed here, I'd still flip one card until I hit, you know, the limit for me. So these spaces are going to get kind of filled up. But other than that, for the most part, the Nemesis player is going to move around the same. You roll a die, move either direction. Now you can actually move in on the corner spaces as a Nemesis player. So if you're in the corner here, you can go in there, but you have to discard like a card or even one infamy to move into here. And then the Nemesis can never enter the very inner tier there. Once the player gets in there, the Nemesis player cannot mess with them. So the other thing that's added to the game, as I said, is the PvP. And so there's a couple of ways that PvP is going to happen. And the first way could be between a Nemesis player and an Imperium player there. And so what you're going to do in the case of fighting a Nemesis is you're going to resolve a threat check against whatever attribute the Nemesis is focused on. And then you roll a die, you add your modifiers, and then the loser of the battle will lose 1 life. And if the loser is the Nemesis player, they're going to confer a bounty onto the character. Now, if you see here, each of the Nemesis actually has a bounty on it. So that's what you're going to get for defeating them if you're one of the Imperium players. Now, a lot of the abilities and things on these Nemesis cards are going to be triggered off of battles and duels and things like that, and that's one way that you're going to get your infamy to go up. Now, as you can see here, the Nemesis guys also have levels, so they have a little peg here that they're going to move up. And as you can see here, you're going to resolve and get better stats on your attribute, and then you're also going to get just straight up infamy, and also be able to resolve cards and draw cards off of your infamy deck. And so to level up, it's going to be basically the same idea as the characters there, but you're going to basically destroy agents out of this Imperium deck. So as these Imperium agents come out, you're going to be able to defeat them, and you spend their points worth to get levels. Now that's not all that's in the expansion. It's not just Nemesis versus Imperium. There are actually some Imperium versus Imperium ideas, and then some of the new scenarios and things are pretty cool. So let's go ahead and look at those. So first, let's look at some of the new cards. And there's a consistent thing with all of these different card types here. So if we look here, this actually has sort of a yellow hue here, and again, these are the different threat cards of the different colors. And you can also see here, first of all, there's an icon there to mark that it's part of this expansion. And this one also says Apostate. So any of these sort of yellow hued cards are going to say Apostate. And when you have one of these cards, this actually makes you a target for other players, for other Imperium players. And so if somebody is carrying anything that has an Apostate, effect or aura about it. So if we look at here, we've actually got a Relic here. This is an Apostate. And your battle dice explodes on a 1 and a 6 result. What's another one here? So your asset limit is increased by 4. At the start of each of your turns, you gain 2 influence. So you can see these are actually, I haven't gone through all of them, but it looks like they're, pretty powerful. So they're also going to make you a target. So when you do that, then you're going to have a declaration of what kind of attribute you're going to have, and basically, everybody adds their modifiers. You roll a die and compare that attribute when it's, Imperium versus Imperium player. So these make you a target there. And again, here's some of these asset cards here. There's some new ones that don't have the Apostate, but quite a few that do. So you can go ahead and shuffle these in. You could kind of modularize this expansion. So you could just go ahead and add these in, and then maybe ignore the Apostate rule if you don't want PvP, but you got some new items and stuff to tinker with. You could add just those in. You could add those in and then take out the Apostate stuff, and then add the Nemesis. You can kind of, mix and match this to your liking. So lastly, we have 4 new scenario cards here that you can play with. Some of these require the Nemesis to be into play, and some of them don't. So let's take a closer look at a couple of these. So this is a very interesting one. I'm excited to play this one, Hulk of the Wayward Warrior. So you can see here, this basically says each time a player spends trophies, he may choose to place any or all of them on the scenario sheet to form a single deck, instead of discarding them to the respective discard piles. So you kind of seed the deck here with monsters that you've already beaten. And then when you come in here and you fight, you've got to shuffle them all up, draw 4 of them, and then basically encounter them. Once you encounter them, if at the end of the encounter you don't have any on there, you can put a character token on there, and if 3 of your character tokens are on the sheet, you win the game. So everybody's kind of seeding, this deck here for some huge battles at the end of the game. Kind of a fun one. This one looks really cool. This is all about the Apostate cards. Now, you cannot enter the inner tier. Again, the inner tier is this little spot here. unless you have an apostate card. So you've got to get one and make yourself a target right off the gate there. But you may discard one apostate asset to place one of your character tokens on any space in the inner tier that does not already have a character token on it. If you have two of your character tokens on spaces in the inner tier, you win the game. And so what's interesting about this is when somebody moves in here, if you remember, when you resolve the warp rift, depending on what kind of stuff you have, you can kind of skip ahead. So once you're on here, you can put down an apostate card, get rid of it, and then you can put a token on there. But what that token allows the other players coming in behind you is to skip any spots that have a token on it. So you got to get in here, and then you've got to put those tokens on there to win the game. But again, you got to have apostate cards to discard those. When you do that, then you're making it easier for people to catch up to you. So it's kind of an interesting thing. People can come in and mess with you, and it's this, really drives people to sort of push their luck and grab these cards that basically paint a target on your back. Now here is the first of the kind of a team scenario. So this one, basically you need at least one Nemesis, 2 in a 6-player game, and then each time a player draws a card that has the Omen icon on it, each Nemesis gains an infamy. Each time a Nemesis draws from his Nemesis deck, he draws 2 cards, chooses one and resolves one and discards the other. If his character ends his movement in another character space, the former character may choose to give any of his influence, power, card assets to the later character. Now when you get into here, you can choose one of the following options, and you discard 4 influence, then place the character token in the 1 slot. Discard any number of power cards, place the character token in the 2 slot. Lose 3 life. If you're not vanquished, if you cannot complete any of these options, return to your starting space. So you get in here, you try to do one of these events here, and if you at the end of your experience phase, if there are character tokens in 3 slots in the sheet, all the Imperium players' characters win the game together. So the Nemesis players are trying to get their infamy, and they kind of have it juiced up a little bit, and then the players are working together to go in here and complete these quests. And then finally, we have here the Dark Alliance, which is a very interesting idea. So before the game begins, players must form 2 teams, each team consisting of 1 Nemesis and 1 character. So you basically, if you had 4 players, I'd have a Nemesis and a character on one team, and then the other team would have a Nemesis and a character. And then you can't fight against your teammate. And then so let's just cut this short. At the start of your experience phase, if your teammate has 25 infamy, you win the game. So it's like you are being sort of this dark, traitorous kind of guy, trying to help the Nemesis on your team get to 25 infamy before the traitor on the other team gets to 25 infamy. So those are the different quests and goals. And if we see here, you can actually, like I said, modularize and splash this in. You can add Nemesis to the base game scenarios, and you can add the apostates and play a base game scenario, and you can play with some of the new scenarios. So there's a lot of stuff to really kind of mix and match your experience here. So it looks pretty good. So like I said, I haven't played this, but I just kind of wanted to do sort of a glorified rules overview unboxing kind of thing, and then just give you a taste of what is in Relic Nemesis. Thanks.